Hey everyone, my name is Amber, and welcome back to another episode of Spotlight Sessions. We are kicking off a brand new season this fall, and I am so excited to be welcoming Lindsay and Katie to join us for our first interview of the second season. Lindsay and Katie are the founders of Babe Nation Films, a Toronto based boutique production company that champions female and emerging voices and stories. They produce critically acclaimed features like The Rest of Us, starring Heather Graham, Alice Starling, starring Anna Kendrick, and are currently working on a very exciting project in the south of France, starring Chloe Sevigny. So, all amazing things. And we're so excited to get to know them a little bit more. Lindsay and Katie, how are you? Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Amber.
Oh
What
my
what an
God.
intro.
Yeah.
Oh, we always have to make sure we set our guests up for success here. We got to get everyone to let them know what we're dealing with.
I was like, we sound
So
great.
yeah,
Yeah,
oh my God, no, we do our research and we get everything good to go.
amazing.
Yeah, so why don't we just get started a little bit with conception of Babe Nation Films because, especially with such a unique mission, which is also so important. What was it like establishing the company and wanting to kind of create this boutique production company, and then also going from kind of producing more smaller projects to now being working on such, critically acclaimed features that are taking you to the south of France. How has that transition been like?
The company was really, it was born very organically out of our friendship. We met in 2010 in Montreal, and should I tell our serendipitous meet cute, Katie?
If you'd like to, go for it.
Um, I had just moved to Montreal, and I was sort of going around the city handing out my resume to various places. And I walked into this very cool clothing store on Saint Laurent, and Katie was the girl behind the counter. So I handed her my resume, and as I was leaving, she saw my name at the top of my resume, and she stopped me at the door, and she was like, "Sorry, this is a really weird question, but like, is your dad's name John by chance?" And it is. So I was like, yes, why? And she said, I don't know if this is going to mean anything to you, but my mom's name is Ingrid Bird. And it did very much mean something to me because my dad and Ingrid Bird used to uh, be friends in the 70s and the 80s. They used to teach sailing together in Toronto on Lake Ontario. And then they also like hitchhiked through Europe together for a little bit back in the day. And so growing up, I had heard all these like iconic stories of Ingrid Bird, of my dad's friend Ingrid Bird, and likewise Katie had heard stories of John Tapscott, but she and I had never met. And then I just 40 years later randomly walked into this clothing store, and she recognized my last name, and there we were. We were sort of instant friends after that.
Yeah, and we kind of like our friendship was really the foundation of our company. The forming of the company really became like a kind of like why not to our friendship, if you will. Like there was never a clear intention of like we want to be producers, we want to have a company. It was like we both love female storytelling. We both just like love women in general and like feel it so important that we are, echoed on screen the way we want to be. And at the time, we were living together, and a lot of the sort of soft funding in Canada had sort of, brought in like gender parity as part of their kind of funding incentives. So, and we had all these amazing friends who were actors and writers and directors and storytellers or dancers and who had these other things they wanted to do. And we just felt like we could be that conduit to get those stories from kind of idea mode into actual three-dimensional form. So it was really organic, and I honestly think that the success of our company has so much to do, if not everything to do, with the women we've worked with the people we've worked with. We started small and sort of worked our way up from short films and web series to our first feature, The Rest of Us, which was just like the most wonderful experience. And it was a lot of our first features, Alana, the writer, Ashling, the director, ours as producers. So we really kind of got this amazing experience of breaking together, which was
Mhm.
really great and kind of leveled the playing field in a really beautiful way. And then, Alice Darling was a step up from that. Obviously, like our cast and our kind of infrastructure increased, which was very nice and very exciting. And then And then this feature we've just done is our largest to date, our most ambitious to date, which has been a true labor of love since the very beginning of our friendship, truly, like since 2010 or 2011, probably. So, um, yeah, we've always just felt like slow and steady is what we're good at, and we always just want to be getting a little bit bigger, a little bit more expensive each time. Every time we do a new project, it's just kind of like, we think of it as a staircase, not a ladder.
I love that. That's fantastic. That probably also makes the transition from going to smaller to bigger a little bit easier rather than feeling like you're going kind of from one end to the other. Yeah. So what would you say your process is of looking for inspiration and IP to kind of produce? Like, are you looking for something specific when you pick things up? Do you often have times where you're like, we need to start finding something? And the same thing goes for collaborators. Are you looking for anything specific in potential collaborators that you're like, I really want to work with these people in this specific thing?
Yeah, it's kind of been a mix since we started, like a mix of people sending things to us and our going after projects that we wanted. Alana, who was the writer of our first feature, The Rest of Us, she sent us her script and sort of as like a, not thinking that we would produce it, just would love your thoughts on this. This is my first script. Maybe it's really bad, but what do you think? And we were like, we're obsessed with this. We have to make it immediately. Um, and but with Bonjour Tristesse, for example, we had both read the book years ago and like really went after that piece of IP as something we wanted to like option and then build from the ground up. Uh, so it's been kind of a mix.
It kind of depends on our mood, really. Like we kind of sometimes feel like we don't know what we're looking for until we find it. Or, like Lindsay said, like we'll read something and we just can't stop thinking about it. And so we will go out of our way to make it happen in whatever shape or form that takes. So, yeah, it's kind of like grocery shopping when you're hungry. You're kind of just like, yeah, that feels like it could be good. Yeah.
I love that. And in terms of the people and collaborators, is there anything else specifically you're also like, that they work a certain way or they have a really good attachment to the IP that you're like, I need to bring
Um,
you on to work on this?
I don't know actually. We trust our gut. I think that's been sort of like the common denominator across everything we've made, both in terms of the creative, but also the
Hmm.
people, the feeling of a project, the way we build it out from the ground up. Um, I mean, we love kind people, we love smart people, we love people that we'll have dinner with in 10 years from now, even if we only make one
Yeah.
movie. It's about the longevity of a relationship for us. It's not just about like one movie, one project, one stressful shoot. It's really about building like an
Hmm.
ongoing
Yeah.
Babe Nation family. That's what we're
Hmm.
that's what we're doing.
Amazing. So along those same lines, talking about projects specifically, I think one of the things that, at least from an outsider's point of view, we kind of hear about getting projects off the ground is balancing the creative intention and vision of a project and then the profitability of it and kind of making back your return. How do you guys kind of balance that or manage that? Because that seems like a very big, daunting thing to try and constantly be aware of. Is there anything specifically that you guys kind of do or think that like alleviate that a little bit?
No.
Um, yeah, this, this is actually something we've been talking about a lot lately, and we're trying to get better at because um, we feel like the kinds of films that we're attracted to aren't necessarily like the big budget,
Sure.
blockbuster studio films. Like we really love quiet dramas with women
Yeah.
talking to each other.
So I'm assuming you've seen women talking.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, so and like obviously we want it to have some level of commerciability
Hmm.
because we want people to see it and love it as much as we do. But yeah, like right now, I think dramas aren't really what people are naturally gravitating to when scrolling on Netflix or going to the theater. So it's something that's an ongoing conversation between the two of us.
Yeah, exactly. We feel like we're still getting like our love children like out of our system in terms of our movies.
Hmm.
Like we're kind of like there are things and stories and people that we want to work with and make. We're sort of still I feel like we're still kind of in that like womb part of our company's inception
Sure.
where we're kind of like we have a free pass to make whatever we want. But at a certain point it's like we have to grow up and like, make a living, I guess.
Yeah.
But yes, we are actively looking for like more commercial things, comedies. Would love to make like a really fresh rom-com. We'd love to make
Nice.
a dance project. Like we've got lots of things on our wish list that we know we'll find. It's just a matter of like when and with who.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice, nice.
Yeah.
I would love to see a rom-com come out from Babe Nation. I think that would be
Yeah.
great.
Would love that. Yeah.
That's
Would love that.
awesome. So yeah, so I guess one of the things that I also immediately was like, I need to ask you guys is when you're thinking about kind of all of your experiences that you guys have had as producers and getting into this, were there any skills or things that either you wish you knew beforehand or things you were like, I'm so happy I kind of honed this and learned how to do this that you think really kind of aided in getting things off the ground, especially with Babe Nation and all the projects that you've done? Any qualities?
There's certainly lots of things that I wish I had known ahead of time, but also if I do feel like if I had known them ahead of time, I maybe wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, 100%.
because because it's it can be very scary, and there are a lot of challenges that go into producing indie features. Um, but I will just speak for myself here, Katie. Uh, Before I was a producer, I was a copy editor and a copywriter in marketing. And when I made when I first made the transition to doing Babe Nation full time and producing, I was like, how is this like I can't be a producer. I've done something totally different than what producing is. But as I started doing it, I found that there were actually transferable skills, like taking a story and shaping it, and um, helping a writer, uh, you know, bring out the best version of the film possible. Like a book editor would not, you know, edit the book so that it's in their own voice. They help shape the book so that it's the writer's best work. And I feel like that is what we do. I mean, we do a ton of other things,
Hmm.
but uh, in specifically the developing of the script and the casting, etc., it's a lot. I found that it's transferable skills, but then there is obviously so much more.
It's the worst job. Like it truly sucks most of the time, but then there are these like amazing moments of wonder and magic and
Yeah.
like creative return that you just
Hmm.
become a goldfish and you forget all the garbage and then you just do it again. So in that way I think this job is really special because it's like sometimes like we
Yeah.
had one of the directors that we work with this summer was like, you guys are insane. Like, I think you're both clinically insane to do what you're doing. And I love it, but I just don't know why you do it, basically. And we sometimes don't know either, but we keep doing it. And I think what Lindsay said is totally true. I think had we known from the beginning what the job entails, I don't think either one of us would do it, but you kind of have to just jump in and try it. Like
Hmm.
producing is birth by fire, and we get so many young producers reaching out to us asking to pick our brain and
Yeah.
like, what do we think about getting into producing, and we kind of can't answer that because it's kind of a thing where it's like you will know very quickly whether you want to do it once you start doing it, and if you don't feel like it's right for you, don't do it, maybe, because it doesn't.
Got
I
it.
don't know if it gets easier. I think it just gets different. Like each movie has its own set of
Yeah.
problems, its own set of, dramatics.
Okay.
Um, but then at the same time, like each movie has its own list of like wonder, like incredible things that happen that you're like, how are we doing this right now? This is insane. This is so special. So
Yeah.
um, you just have to be open and creative, and I think also like have a good perspective on what
Mhm.
you're doing, because at the end of the day, we're not saving lives. We're not, it's all for art. It's all for make believe, which is wonderful, and people need that. But they're also like these little capsules of time that we're working on, and then they kind of finish, and the next one begins. So,
And
um,
then you
yeah, just
you etch a sketch the
you
trauma.
get just get your brain. Yeah, you get to the premiere, it starts, and your brain goes, "Bloop," and then you go, "Let's do this
Another
again."
one.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's hilarious. I'm gonna cut out. We're gonna cut out the part that said it's the worst job. Put that in the front of the episode and be like, you don't have to watch the rest. It's okay. You got
yeah.
your answer in the beginning, and then you have to watch
It's the
everything else.
worst job, but it's also the best
I
job.
love that. That's
So,
fantastic. I feel like that is definitely a lot of creative careers just in general,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
think
yeah,
that's why they're so special for the people that really want to get into it because if you keep pushing, like you said, Katie, the return I think is something so unique and special to that. So that's great. And I know we briefly mentioned or touched on this in the beginning, but I want to go back to this mission of empowering emerging women, especially female voices and stories. Have you had experiences, if you're comfortable sharing, as female producers, where you were like, I need to see this representation on screen because no one else is putting this out there or feeling undermined by that? And how do you want to see women and female voices depicted on
Yes,
screen?
we've definitely had experiences in, trying to get our movies off the ground where we were not taken as seriously as we probably would have been if we were men. I also think people at first, not so much now because we're more established, but at first, uh, people, men, would would see our name, Babe Nation, and think we were just kind of two idiots who didn't know anything. So yeah, there was definitely there are things that that we can point to that just even subtle things like um, I once wore red lipstick to a meeting and the man instead of listening to us just wouldn't stop looking at my mouth, like things like that that just like wouldn't happen in a room of women.
I was just gonna
Um,
say, like, I think just as women in general across any industry, we always have to work harder to get a seat at any table, period. So I think Linz and I, and so many other women in every industry who are kind of doing the same as us, um, we just decided to build our own table. Like, that's kind of the only way to do it. It's not about like, for us, I think we don't want to work in a way that men before us have built. Like, we don't want to adhere to a certain way of working. We don't want to be aggressive just for the sake of being aggressive. We don't want to be, you know, we have our own way of producing, our own way of working. We have a soft touch, and that's how we work. That's our assertive quality, and that's how we build what we've built so far, and we'll continue to do that. So I think for us, it's like, yes, it's about telling the stories we want to have told, and see, and we're making these projects for women that we love the most, and the people that we care about deeply. But at the same time, it's like also about building a different culture of movie making, a different culture of hiring a crew, of bringing on actresses, of maintaining relationships after we've wrapped camera, after a film has premiered. It's about, as I said, it's that longevity that I talked about earlier is what this is about for us. It's not just about like having a company and making deals and making movies and going to Cannes. It's like we're we're doing this because we care deeply about what we're putting out, and we care deeply about that person sitting in the theater, and the movie comes up and they don't know anything about us, but they resonate with a character that they see in one of our films. Like, that's what this is about for us. So everything else is sort of noise to us.
so what Katie just said about how we like to work and treat the people that we work with, none of that was particularly thought out beforehand. It was just sort of how we worked and innate to us. And as we started doing more things, we got a lot of people on our who had worked on our crews or cast members who would say to us like, "Your sets are so incredible and welcoming and loving, and like it's not like." they would tell us horror stories of other sets that they'd been on, and they were just like shocked that it was so different. And hearing this, we were like, but how? Like, is it really that bad out there? And they were like, no, it is though.
But also, like,
But
why?
why?
Like, why are people
Yeah,
doing that?
yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's really astounding to hear about the culture on sets, because it's just that's absolutely not how you run things or
Yeah.
how we run things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we need more of you and Katie in this industry. Gosh. Yeah, wow. So I guess as we wrap up, I would love to hear, you guys have already, you're gotten so far from I think where you started, and again, you're working on such incredible projects. What are your goals with Babe Nation in the future? Where do you see Babe Nation going in, let's say, 5, 10 years? Is there a goal or an ambition otherwise that you really kind of want to set your minds to?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we love a 5-year plan. Um, and we've achieved our first 5-year plan, which is amazing. So I guess we're kind
Round
of
of
at our
applause.
next
Big
our
round of
next
applause.
thank you. Yeah, our second chapter has begun. We want to get into television. We're like really
Nice.
gunning
Okay.
to do television. We would love to expand. Like we never want to be a big company. We always want to keep it small, but yeah, would love to kind of scale a little bit because it's still just the two of us
Hmm.
doing everything. We eventually would love to open up a European arm of our company. I have a European citizenship, so we're trying to kind of see what that entails. But
Nice.
just like
Okay.
we love European cinema so much, and being in Europe this summer shooting really kind of like opened up a bit of a gap in our imaginations of like what could we do here if we had the opportunity to kind of like have a
Mhm.
foothold. So that's definitely on our
Mhm.
radar. Um, and then otherwise, like, yeah, would love to kind of keep mentoring. And we've talked about, other forms of Babe Nation, both in kind of like the publishing world. We've talked about sales. We've talked about education. There's lots of things that we have kind of in our back pocket and would love to put in motion. Yeah.
That's amazing. I would love to see that all happen. That's fantastic. Oh my gosh. And last, we always ask our guests this as our last wrap up question. If there's any piece of advice or guidance or something that you'd like to share to young aspiring producers, film professionals, artists that might be listening and watching, anything that you think you'd like to leave them with. Maybe Lindsay, if you wanted to start us off, and then we can go to Katie.
I think first and foremost, I would say just jump in. Uh, I was so scared when we first started producing, um, that like I didn't have the experience. I didn't know, what to do, blah blah blah. But eventually, and this was all of this fear was happening while we were doing it. And Katie was like, "But you're doing it though. this you're currently doing it." And then after the rest of us was done, I was like, "Oh right, I I just did it." And so really producing is just learning by doing. Like you can be told all the things, but it's all conceptual until you're doing it. And it's really a job that
Hmm.
you learn on the job. So you just have to dive in, and I would also say really love the project that you're producing. You have to love it. Otherwise, it's a really hard job to do. So you have to
Yeah.
really love the project.
Yeah. I would say I echo everything Lynn said. And then I would add to that I see you're loving the job and I raise you. Trust your gut, always trust your instincts. Producing is so instinctual. If something feels off, it probably is. If something feels right, it probably is. So listen to that. You are driving the whole thing
Hmm.
from A to Z. It's you. You're the only constant from the very beginning to the very end. Um, that's a big one. And then honestly, like always take the high road. It's really hard sometimes. It's really hard sometimes.
Because you meet a lot of people who don't take the high road.
Yeah. But it will always pay off.
Hmm.
And
Right.
kindness and respect is always the right choice. So don't send that nasty email. Write it, send it to your best friend, pop it in your
Sleep on
drafts
it.
folder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go to bed. Yeah. And in the morning, take the high road.
Yeah.
I'm perfect way to wrap this up. That was fantastic. Thank you guys so much, Lindsay and Katie. You guys are so amazing to talk to. Thank you for sharing a little bit about Babe Nation, everything you guys are doing. And again, everyone at Off the Charts is so excited to see where you guys go. We're sure it's going to be amazing. If any of you listening or watching would like to keep in touch with Babe Nation and see where they're going next, all the links to things will be in wherever you're watching or listening to this too in the descriptions. And with that being said, again, Lindsay and Katie, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see all of you on the next episode. Bye, everyone.